Happy Monday, everybody. So, hopefully your weekend was fun. Hopefully you found yourself engaged in some interesting activities, at least on campus or in the city. I'm not sure what the weather is like there, but it's been swelteringly hot here. So I envy where you are at the moment, except for the fact that, of course, I'm still being productive. Let's just jump right into it. So for today's class, you had to conceive of an image that you think might somehow work as a metaphorical or analogical representation of some kind of conception of the California dream. And your first thinking paper is taking that image, whether it be an artwork or a posted photograph on Instagram or an album cover or an advertisement, whatever the case may be, whatever you chose, and to perform a denotative description of it, just so that you are forming a relationship to this image. The goal, of course, being that this image you are then going to graduate into utilizing for your cultural artifact analysis essay. That's the goal, at least. You don't have to commit to that, but it's the goal. So I thought, why not let's go over this first major assignment, which is due in 2 weeks. Why don't we do that now so that it's in your mind, and then we can jump into doing some examples. And that's what we'll mainly do today. So maybe follow along with me if you want. The assignment prompt is in the week 4 module when it is, no, is that right? In the week 3 module when it is due. So you can take a look at that. I mean, it's straightforward. Essay 1, Cultural Artifact Analysis. You can read along. The California Dream and Cultural Artifact. This assignment asks you to consider an image and to provide an in-depth analysis of the way this cultural artifact addresses the modern perspective of the California Dream and its realities. This is not a research paper. That is to say, I'm not interested in what the experts have to say about your subject for analysis, if anything, but rather what you have to say. So our very first assignment is really just deriving itself fully from your own ability to observe and to reflect. So your paper should be grounded in a detailed description of the subject, this image that you've chosen, and extend to reach questions concerning its implications, its relationship to what you believe are the more important aspects of the California Dream and the California reality. So you can see this is pretty wide open, but that's mainly because I do not like to assign papers that do not have an element of creativity, because that's the whole point of writing. There's always should be a creative element, and it needs to come from your own genius. So we want to see what you can do. As your paper will be based on observations you make and claims you articulate, so should it strive to explain why you think these things. And that's really the crux of it. We're not just taking an image, interpreting it, and then saying, this reminds me of California Dream. This reminds me of the California Dream. But indeed, the analytical part is you connecting aspects of the image that you've selected to aspects of your own conception of the California Dream at large. So basically, the evidence is in your visual identifications rather than research. I've provided here a structure that you can use if you want. And again, you can experiment with this if you'd like. That's what college is. It's all about experimentation. So you need to figure out your own kind of writing style, but I'm here to help you. But this is the time to screw around and play if you'd like. But if you're much more interested in being provided a structure, so that you can just play with the language, that's fine too. The suggested structure on the prompt would be as such. Provide a concrete description of the artifact. So this is kind of referring back to that denotation. You certainly don't have to be that dry, but be inspired by the denotation of your image. 2, interpret the image. How does it convey its meaning? How does it convey its tone? How does it convey its perspective? Are there symbols embedded in the work? So how does the image make its meaning? Then, 3rd, relate the image's meaning to the goal of the analysis. What aspect of the California dream or the California reality is being somehow signified in this image? How have you determined that? What about the image or an aspect of the image suggests this connection that you're making? What perspective does the artifact have concerning the way that you perceive California? And then lastly, as in all essays, reflect. Do you share the same feeling as this image? Do you have a variation of that feeling that the image has? Why or why not? Give us some of your own perspective, your own insight. So basically, just like They Say, I Say is constantly espousing here, making argument for, is that we are in conversation with the things that we encounter. So in fact, in many ways, you're thinking about the image that you've chosen, and you're in conversation with the way that it is making meaning about the California dream. And you're saying, yeah, I kind of buy that, or I disagree with that, but I agree with this, or yeah, I'm getting some slight variation of agreement in the way this is depicting my perspective of California. You see what I'm getting at. And that is your first formal paper, which is due in 2 weeks. MLA format, we all know that. If we don't, I'll definitely help you, because next week we are doing individual Skype conferences or FaceTime conferences. So anything that you are uncertain about or that's being presumed in the class, I can definitely help clarify. Okay? MLA format, double-space, 12-point font, roughly 5 pages. You'll be surprised. Most students write more than that. But I'm not really one of those instructors that cares about the size of the paper. I care about its comprehension and success. But, it takes a while to describe an image. It takes a while to interpret an image. It takes a while to apply that interpretation to a conception of something as abstract as the California dream, and then to reflect on it. So I would say you're definitely going to hit 5 pages or more. But some writers are more concise, and some writers are more loquacious. So I don't think that we should be concerned about stuff like size, okay? Just focus on kicking ass. Just focus on dedicating yourself to writing something that is interesting to you. Cool? And with that being said, the goal of the Thinking Paper 1 that you're turning in today is to have you start thinking about your image and to already be dedicated to looking at the image so that you form a relationship with it, so that your analysis is deeper. However, and this happens sometimes, people choose an image for their thinking paper thinking that it's going to be something that they'll want to do their artifact analysis on, and then they wind up getting bored. They're tired of looking at the image. If that happens to you, abandon the image. Choose another one. You don't have to do another thinking paper, but you want to make sure that you are selecting a topic that you care about, right? I mean, there's nothing worse than reading writing that is based on no interest. So you really have to find your passion when it comes to that. So there is no censorship in this class no matter what image you choose, as long as you can find some correlation to the California dream or the way that you conceive of California, the way you perceive it, doesn't matter to me what you choose. So keep that in mind. You can certainly stay with the image that you have found because you feel like it's a good one. Or if you start getting bored, you can abandon that image and then choose something else for the more formal paper. Okay? So for today, why don't we practice there's this bug that keeps flying over. It wants to land on me. It's a dragonfly. It's cool, but I don't want it to land in my face. But for today's class, we have a discussion question. And it's basically a microcosm of the entire paper that is due in 2 weeks. So what I've done here is in the week 2 module on Monday, you'll see there is discussion question, Ed Ruscha, the back of Hollywood. And then just below it is an image of that very famous photograph called Back of Hollywood. Basically, do a mini analysis. Take a look at the photograph, and then in your discussion post, practice denotative description again. So write a denotative description of this image. Then identify elements within the composition, within the photograph itself, that you can then maybe interpret. So pay attention to the actual symbols in the image. Pay attention to the color and the style in which it is created. I keep saying photograph, it's a painting, my bad. Ed Ruscha is a photographer, so he typically doesn't paint, but this is a painting. Jeez. Pay attention to the framing of the image. All these things matter, right? Because the image was a creation. And so the artist made choices. So don't take anything for granted. Okay? Describe the painting. Identify the symbols in the painting. Anything that is remarkable or unique. The color, the style, the tone, the framing of the image. Think about any of these things. Think about what it references in general. And then lastly, jot down what you think this image is trying to say in relation, if we are to think about it in terms of our assignment, if we are to think about it in terms of the California dream or reality, right? Then highlight what you think this painting is telling us about that. And that is the discussion question. Again, it's to have us begin to prepare our analytical chops, and it's good practice for what we're going to be doing in a couple weeks. Okay? And that is what we have today. So have fun with that. For Wednesday's class, we're going to get a little bit more practical. I'm asking you to read a student example of the cultural artifact analysis paper that you're going to be turning in on September 10th. Just to give you an idea of what another student has done. And it's always a good way to kind of see, okay, this is a possibility. So you're going to be reading Lindsay Taylor's Matterhorn, which is about the famous ride in Disneyland. So you already had the example of her thinking paper, and now I'm giving you the entire paper, just as a way so you can kind of see the process in which other students have done this assignment. And then there's also a very quick read covering artist Julio Reyes, who does some really awesome art. And so he's also thinking about the California dream. I just thought it would be relevant to get a little bit of an analysis of his work. These are really short readings. And then on Wednesday, like I said, we're going to do a little bit more practical. We're going to go through the anatomy of an analytical paper just to kind of charge us back up from high school. We're gonna just talk about the basic structure of essays, and I'm gonna give you some tips on particularly intros and conclusions for Wednesday's class. All right, have fun. Have a great second week at college, and I will talk to you soon.